Great. All right. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Hazel.
Thanks for talking with me. So we're going to get a little bit personal with you. And yeah, it's basically just going to be a chat about your climbing history, the changes you've made in your climbing, kind of the way that you've invested in your climbing in the last year or two, probably, right? And
Yeah.
then kind of like the experiences you've had. And I think that a lot of the experiences you've had are quite relatable, I think. And there's a lot to be learned from hearing your story. So yeah, let's just start off by if you could tell us a little bit about your climbing history, your climbing life, up until the point that you kind of decided to invest a bit in your climbing experience.
Yeah, no worries. So I started climbing when I went to university in my 20s, and I'm now 55. I was 55 yesterday.
Oh, happy
So
birthday.
yeah, thank you. So a long time ago, but probably really typical. Started climbing at university, had no idea what I was doing, and just went out with other people, and it was all trad. So I followed trad, and I learned to lead trad from other climbers. Nobody had any qualifications, or I never had a coach or nothing, just learned from other people. And so I guess really typical. We didn't have climbing. Well, we did have climbing walls, but not like we have them now. So I lived in Leeds, and we had the traversing wall at the university, and so nothing like we do now. So very much, I would say, it was characterized by a bottom-up approach,
Yeah.
just on-siting everything. And if I didn't think I could do it, then I wouldn't do it, because for me, falling off definitely was not an option. I didn't
Yeah.
want to fall on the gear that I was placing. It was probably fine. I don't think I hadn't tested out that, so I didn't really know how fine it was. So I just
Yeah.
went and did it.
So sort of like leader doesn't fall
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely. Red woolen
mentality.
socks. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have your
Um,
own red woolen socks?
yeah, on hills. We all
Nice.
were on hills.
Great.
So yeah, and then so I did lots of trad, and I climbed till I was in my 30s, and then I had a family, and I did less climbing, and
Yeah.
actually took up mountain biking, and then I came back to climbing in my mid 40s, and then went climbing inside, because we had climbing walls, and then we had bolts as well. Though for me, sport climbing was trad climbing, but just with bolts, which actually was sort of problematic because there were often less of them. So I
Mm,
think I actually found sport climbing more stressful, because trad climbing for me was characterized by just like lacing everything with masses and masses
yeah.
of gear and getting totally pumped. And so I was approaching sport climbing in exactly the same way as I was trad climbing, on lighting, bottom up, not trying anything unless I knew that I could do it and I wouldn't fall off.
So did you ever fall off?
No.
Not once in that whole time. So you didn't even slip.
I no. I
Wow.
well,
You could have just soloed all those things and you would be like one
I
of the
know.
world's best soloists.
Yeah, and that's probably why I was just like terrified of everything, because I could have been soloing it. Yeah. In my head,
Hmm.
that's probably what I was doing.
Right. And how did it feel to go out climbing like that? How much did you enjoy it?
I think there was definitely more retrospective enjoyment than enjoyment at the time.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
and I would definitely worry before I went climbing,
Okay.
because I knew that by going, even though I love climbing,
Mm.
I knew that the experience whilst I was climbing, and even being at the crag, was one of that was a fear-led experience. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And then what happened to motivate you to change that? Because lots of climbers, that is their experience, and that either they don't know another way of climbing, or they're happy with that way of climbing and they continue with that way of climbing. So what motivated you to change your approach to climbing?
because because I because I just got to this point where I couldn't progress anymore. I couldn't climb harder routes. I was just so completely stuck, and I would just keep going out and doing the same thing. So I was just so
Mm,
frustrated with myself. And I climb quite a lot with my son, who lives
mm,
in Austria, and he would just say to me all the time, if you were to fall off, you would climb so much harder. And so I
right.
just knew that's what I had to do, but I had no idea of how to go about it. Beyond, everybody would say, what you need to do, Helen, is climb to the top of a route in the wall and then don't clip the chains and jump off. And I'd be like, no, I can't do that. And so
Okay.
it was not attainable, there was no way I was doing that. So I didn't really know how to go about it.
So for how long did you know that you needed to change something and you wanted to change something, but you didn't know how to change it?
Oh, maybe, I don't know, quite long, maybe 4 years, something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's quite a long time to be frustrated, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
and then
why it's
what's
so good now.
right? Yeah, now you're loving it. And then so what was the first thing you did? What was the first kind of like actionable step that you took?
Well, I definitely started trying to read lots of things about. So obviously, Rock Warriors Way, step
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, nice.
Read that loads of times because I struggled to sort of really take that on board, if you like, as a
Mm,
practical
yeah.
solution. So I read it loads and loads and loads. And the first thing the thing that really struck me from that was that if you get yourself to the point where you just get yourself to the point where you're like, you either commit or you just go home. There's just you've got to take responsibility. If you're there, you might as well, you've got to commit. So that went with me for a while. It got me to a certain point. So I read that, and then just lots of stuff, on the internet, or just trying to find out lots and lots of things, or talking to people, or it, that. But then obviously I came across when you did your Strong Minds course, was the real game changer, start of the game changer for me.
Okay. When you said before, you need to commit or go home, what did you mean by that, and what did that look like practically?
It was one of the things I remember most of, or takeaways from the Rock Warriors Way. I mean, obviously there are loads of things within that, but getting to the point when you are leading something, or even beyond that, at the bottom, by making the decision that you were going to even climb, you knew that you were going to get to a point where you were going to be challenged. So accepting that challenge, and then really kind of, yeah, just accepting that the challenge was going to be there. And if you weren't ready, if you weren't able to accept that challenge, there wasn't really much point in even getting to that point. So for a while, that was sort of how I was looking at things, which obviously
Hmm.
wasn't getting me that far, if that makes
Mm.
sense to you.
And why do you think it wasn't getting you that far?
Because I hadn't really dealt with, oh God, all the other all the other mindset issues. It was just
Hmm.
me trying to throw in a practical solution, like a bit of a band-aid, really.
Mm. Yeah. And I guess the danger, if you took that too far, is that then you would get the challenge level too high, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's I think a lot of people's journeys is like staying in their comfort zone too much, like not pushing themselves at all. Then like, oh, I've just learned that actually I need to push myself, push themselves
Yeah,
too much in that panic zone, ingraining all of that fear and making lots of negative associations, and then going, oh, I don't like it out here, this is horrible, and then go back
yeah,
into the comfort zone. Do you want to speak a bit more
yeah.
about your experience with that?
Yeah. So I definitely um I definitely did not get the challenge level right. Not in terms of what my potential challenge level is, if you see what I mean, but the fact that I wasn't mentally able to deal with it. It wasn't the right challenge level for me at the time. So yeah, I definitely spent far too long in my panic zone, and actually made way more progress once I started to spend, making sure I spent a lot more time in either stretch one really, and just really just building up loads of associations of having a nice time. But that, finding a process that enabled me to do that was really important, really key.
Yeah, okay. I'll just say for people who haven't done the course, stretch one is kind of when you feel like a little bit uncomfortable, but it's like that positive, exciting space. It's really manageable. Um, but it's not so stressful that you're starting to have a bad time. Yeah, just to clarify that. Let's maybe put that aside for 1 second, because I think there's still parts of your story that would be interesting. So you did the strong mind course,
Yep.
which I gather you got a lot out of. But
Yeah,
during the
it's good.
strong mind course, you witnessed an accident, right, which was quite challenging.
Yeah, so I started the Strong Minds in January, and then at the beginning of March, I was out bed climbing and was present when there was a fatality. And it was part of the group that I was in. So that was hugely challenging for me. Um, and that was with trad. So it was a while before I went climbing again. And then I just really focused on sport from that point. They're not necessarily because of that. It's just what I've kind of got into this year. But yes, that was like a real icing on the cake when you added to all the ingrained fear I'd had because of my previous climbing experiences. There was just like a lot there that I then needed to be able to deal with, um, in order to have a happy climbing experience.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think you know, again, for people who haven't done the course or don't know a lot about ingrained fear and trauma, but you can, when it comes to fear, you have like a one trial learning type thing. So all you need is one bad experience to really like ingrain a negative association, or a trauma or a fear response or something. But you can also have like lots of smaller, less stressful experiences, but over time, they also ingrain a really strong fear response. And basically, what you've just said is that you had both. You had all of those years of
Mm.
not really building positive associations, and just spending your time quite stressed and anxious at the crag. And then, you witnessed like one of the worst things you could see in climbing, right? A really, really horrible thing to witness, really painful. How did you go about like rebuilding your relationship with climbing in a positive way after all of that?
Well, I came to Kalymnos. That was quite a key factor for me. So coming on your retreat, because when I arrived, as you could see, I had a set behavior. This is what I did when I went to the crag. I went to the crag and I probably climbed as many routes as I possibly could around, looking at it going, oh yeah, I think I can do that, so I'll give it a go. And by the end of the week, I was just mentally exhausted, but I started to change the way that I behaved. So I think you'd put it that it was like breaking down this sort of climbing tower of, this is how I behave when I climb, and actually starting again. And I think that unless, I would have found that very difficult to do that on my own. I think just going, right, I'm just going to behave differently. So all the coaching that you and Angus gave around that was hugely useful. And I could see that unless I started at the beginning building up these experiences again, that I would never change. I would just carry on behaving in the same way, and I wouldn't reach any of the goals that I decided I wanted to set for myself.
Mm-hmm. So when you started, when you came to the retreat, you were climbing a lot of routes, but you weren't really pushing yourself, right? And to, towards the end of the retreat, you were trying harder climbs and pushing yourself a bit more. Um, but that was off the back of a lot of fall practice as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with falling and the process you've gone with from climbing for, what was it? I don't know, 30 years or something,
Yeah.
of never having fallen to falling quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So um so to start with, full practice before I came to Klimnos, beginning with the Strong Minds course, down at the climbing wall, hugely stressful. If I could do 3 falls, I'd be like sort of a bit of a really relieved, but I found it a very stressful experience. So starting off just falling below the bolt, and then falling at the bolt and falling a bit above. But I think still at that point, I was sort of more, okay, so I've fallen below the bolt, tick. I've fallen at the bolt, tick. Right, so now I'm going to go above, and just like progress without really understanding that I needed to take loads of falls that felt comfortable, whether it was below, whether it was at, and that whole volume of falls where they were comfortable needed to massively increase. And so then falling in when we were out in Klimnos that was actually quite traumatic, because it was other people falling, so that was obviously all the trauma from witnessing the fall and the fatality, which was a real surprise to me. I hadn't expected that at all. So I had quite a lot of work to do coming back again. And so just systematically making sure every single week I went, and I still do, going to practice falling inside and then taking it outside with the same process. But interestingly, what was with falling was a real game changer for me was falling on demand. So where with the person that I've been doing lots of falling with, we would discuss the type of falls that were acceptable, that were in the right challenge level, things that we wanted to work at, I need to work it, or I want to work it bringing my feet up, and falling there. But then someone going, go Helen, and then me letting go actually was quite a game changer for me. And it was fun. And
right, cool.
So that was really good. And then from that, the next step being, so it was a while before I could have the stress of climbing hard and falling. I couldn't do those things together. that took
Yeah.
quite a while for me to get to that point. But I've got to that point now. So there was a definite stage process of taking the falls, working with the breathing, feeling comfortable, to then the falling on demand, to then climbing harder routes that I would just fall off because I couldn't do the moves. Well, I wanted to jump to the climbing hard and falling off from just doing the initial fall practice.
Mm-hmm.
And actually there was like a whole series of steps in between this point and that point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think your experience is really common there. I think that a lot of people give up with the fall practice because they go, oh, well, I've improved at fall practice, but I'm not seeing it translate to climbing hard. But I think you've really got to be patient because it's almost like the brain needs to learn actually how to fall first, which can only really be done in that nicer space of the fall practice, in that more controlled space of the fall practice. It's kind of like with bouldering, fear of falling. You won't be able to try hard on a move and fall onto the mats if your body doesn't trust that it's actually going to land. And you need to do quite a few, like, just jumping off and more controlled falls before you can do that fall where you're like jumping to the hold or whatever. So I think it's a good message for people to hear that, you stuck with the process and you did actually get those benefits on
Yeah,
the
definitely.
on actual hard climbing. And you climbed your hardest sport route this year, right?
Yeah, I climbed my first 7A this year. So I
Oh,
was
that's
just
so
like,
cool.
oh yeah, I was so pleased. But that was really interesting because my goal, one of my goals, like an end goal, was to lead 7A. But that was sort of in my head, as a distant thing. Whereas actually, every time I was going to the crag, it was my process goal was trying hard and falling off. And so as long as I went and tried hard and fell off, it was just a great day. And so I with this particular route, I was really good at trying hard and falling off. But then actually, when it came to shift to actually sending the route, I found there's a completely different mindset there to trying hard, but I actually don't want to fall off. I'm okay if I do, but I don't really want to. And I found that quite hard because almost before I'd be like, oh, I've tried hard and I've fallen off. Brilliant. Or we can just go home now. So that whole series of different mind shifts within the world of falling to get to lead to lead 7A was really quite complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's a real journey you've been on. Yeah, it's
Mm.
interesting that you were like so process oriented that you actually needed to become more outcome oriented to
Yeah,
complete the
absolutely.
outcome. And it's usually not that way around. Most people are so outcome oriented and they need to be more process oriented. But you'd worked so hard on your mindset to be, you'd prioritize the learning
Yeah,
process and really like focused on your development as a climber, right? Because you could see that your biggest weakness was that you couldn't try until you fell. So that's what you were working on. But we
yeah,
still have, the point of climbing is still to get to the top, right? That is the task.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
almost like, you needed to switch into that slightly more outcome focus. That's really interesting. And how did that feel?
What, when she got
Yeah,
to the
to
top?
do the route and to kind of, not only achieve your goal, but understand that that goal was kind of like this product and this bonus and this proof of all of the hard work and the whole journey that you'd been through.
Just amazing, just because uh, to actually believe, which is a whole nother thing, to I had to believe that I could climb this route. I had to believe that I could make all these moves that I didn't believe that I would be able to do. before. And so I did believe that I could do it. But even though, even then, getting to the top, and you get to the top and you're like, wow, I did this. I felt so good. But then I felt a bit lost because I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I've done it now. I have
yeah.
to
So
find
what?
something else to do.
Yeah, what's next for you?
I've been doing lots of, well, not lots, but so doing quite a lot of 6Cs because I can do those in 2 goes and
Mm-hmm.
still using the same process,
Yeah.
rather than having a project that because with that, I definitely went there 3 days over the course of however long. So that was quite a lot of commitment, whereas I haven't really been in a position to sort of or find another one that I really go, yeah, I really want to do that. So I've been choosing smaller ones, but you still using the same process. And
Yeah.
I'll always put the drawers in and not just assume that I might be able to on site it, whereas I would have done that before, but deliberately work moves out. And always I take falls, so I'll always take falls the first time on a route, and then I just climb it better because I know
Yeah.
that I can fall off it
Great.
until
Cool.
I get something else
Yeah.
that I go, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah, you got to be inspired, haven't you, for your project? You can't really force it. And I think it's great learning for you as well to collect routes at that grade. Because what sort of grade were you climbing before this process on sport?
Oh, 6A, 6B, done some 6B pluses, but yeah, so now having that kind of really building that really solid triangle base with
Mm-hmm.
lots of experience of trying hard. But I guess, for me, 6C is quite good because I can also get the success and build that confidence up and that self-belief as
Mm-hmm.
well to try longer projects as well.
Nice. Yeah. So, you've spent all these years with a certain relationship with climbing, and then how long have you had this more new relationship with climbing? Is it about a year?
Yeah, yeah, just this last
Yeah.
year.
So that's quite a fast progression, isn't it? I mean, I guess it's hard to know what would be fast and what would be slow, but I think
Mm,
it's inspiring your story because it shows that actually if you if you do everything right and you really invest, it's almost like your mind can actually change quicker than your body. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's such a fast turnaround given how much time you had climbing beforehand.
yeah.
How does it feel to just have changed so much so quickly?
Well, it is amazing, and I think that I just focus on the process. When I would write stuff and say to Angus, "Well, I just trust the process," because it is just about trusting the
Mm,
process, and that if you were building your body and you're going to the gym or whatever, you would you would just keep going. You would just keep going
mm,
because you knew you had to keep putting all this work in to get the results, whatever those results are. Well, it's the same with your mind. You just have to keep. For me, I just had to keep going. Okay, so I just keep going. This is what I'm going to keep doing. I'm just going to keep doing this, and if I keep
yeah,
doing it, then you get these little kind of, yeah, then you will get these results, but you just have to
yeah,
keep doing it and keep the
yeah.
focus.
Yeah, and I think what's important there is like if you were training in the gym physically and you weren't getting stronger, that would be information and feedback that you did need to adjust your training program. Like that's kind of like the process of physical training. It's the same with
Yeah,
mental training. Like you try something, and if you commit to that, you you're patient with that process, and then if you're not getting your results, you then need to change something. So for example, you were doing quite a bit of fall practice, but you were actually getting the challenge level a bit high. And then,
Yeah.
you realize that and you were like, no, I need to drop that challenge level a bit. I need to do hundreds of falls that feel just a tiny bit stressful for me, like falls that you think you should be able to do really easily, no, but actually when you get closer to those bodily sensations, you realize that you are a bit stressed. So then you can make those adjustments in the process. So it's not kind of like blindly doing the process. You've had to make so many adjustments in
Yeah.
this time
Yeah,
frame.
definitely. And the other thing that's um, a, been a massive learning thing is belaying, and the importance of being a good belayer, whether it's somebody belaying me, it's pretty important, but also me belaying somebody else, and understanding. This has been a massive learning experience for me, understanding about giving a soft catch and the implications of of receiving a soft catch or not, and how that affects your fall. So if I'm climbing with somebody new, the first thing that I will do is well, not obviously the first thing, but when it's safe to do so, I will fall off, and we will keep
Mm,
doing that until we've worked out what they need to do for a soft catch for me, or what I need to do for a soft catch for them. And if I don't do that, then that's a whole level then that kind of, if you don't do it, kind of undermines your ability to climb,
mm-hmm.
because you are going to fall off. Whereas before I'd have just gone, yeah, probably fine, because I'm not really going to fall off, so it doesn't really matter. Where it's hugely important.
Yeah, and that's why we have so many bad belayers, right? Because if you have that
Mm.
soloing mentality and everyone you go climbing with, none of them fall off, when do you ever get to practice and hone your skills as a belayer when no one falls? Um, so there's like a
Yeah,
whole belaying side to this process of learning how to fall as well, which I think always takes a lot of people by surprise, when they come on our courses.
yeah,
Most people say, I did not expect to learn so much about belaying. But it's not really a surprise when you think about the fact that they've probably come from climbing partnerships where no one falls.
yeah.
Um,
I feel
yeah.
like I'm a bit sort of like an evangelical about the whole thing, sort of, in terms of this sort of message that I'm giving out to everybody, this is change your life and all this sort of thing. But there's also more to it. The falling's really important, but there was, I think, also really shifting my mindset from one of this kind of fixed experience in terms of this is what I do, and that, and not trying harder stuff because I don't think I'll be able to do it. That was a lot of effort to change into, well, I don't know if I can do it, but I might be able to do it. So I'm going to find out if I can do it. So this is what I have to do in order to find out if I can do it. So
Mm.
this is what I'm going to do. This is the process I'm going to follow to see whether I could climb that. And that's massive.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And I really like the way that you've put that because you hear a lot of coaches and in this positive psychology space or sports psychology space of like, you've just got to say that you can do it. And it's like, well, that's too big a step to go from I
Yeah.
honestly can't imagine myself there to I can do it. It's just I'm lying to myself. Whereas I find this space of curiosity. Like I'm open to what's going to happen. I don't know if I can do this or not, but I'm curious and I'm excited to see if I can do it. I think that's a much more appropriate and accessible and useful state to be in than just like, I'm totally going to do this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really love that you had that process. What were some of the things that helped with that, you know, of that journey of have getting more self belief?
I think for me, having a process. So all the theory is really useful. So actually, I could sort of break it down into different things. So if I go kind of sidestep to theory, super important when you understand why, you understand why your brain or your body is going to do the things it's going to do. And it's completely understandable that it is going to do those things, because you're on a rock face, or you're like really high, or you are going to have to deal with this physiological responses to fear. It's not as though like all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden you're not training yourself to never feel fear. You are going to feel fear, but it's what you're
Mm-hmm.
going to do about it. So that was really important. And then learning the best methods for me, which is definitely breathing,
Mm-hmm.
to manage that fear. And also understanding things like, well, okay, so I can take falls. I'm not taking massive whippers, but then I don't need to. I just need to know that I'm okay to fall. And it's not like a direct, and this took me a while to get my head around. It's not a direct correlation that if I can only fall 3 foot above a bolt, that's my maximum height that I can go above a
Mm-hmm.
bolt. It's not that at all. I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay to fall, but then it's having the techniques and the skill to manage that fear when you might be going higher than you'd really like to above a bolt. and
Yeah.
and looking at it, and this was a big thing. So rather than looking at it going, that's quite a long run out, and that hold looks totally shit, and that hold looks totally rubbish, and that's not great hold, actually looking at it in the other way going, well, yes, it is quite a run out, but by the time I've got my feet to that point, and that's looks as though it's a good hold, it's actually going to be okay. So really looking at things in a positive way
Mm-hmm.
rather than a negative, totally psych yourself out, fear inducing way. So those things, and then on top of that, having a process, so that you're not having to rethink the wheel every time you go to the crag. You're going to go, okay, so no, this is my process. So I actually, if I'd always agree with the person I'm climbing with, this is my intention for today.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? This is what I'm going to do. And
Mm-hmm.
make it sort of agree this. Yeah, I'm going to put the drawers in. I'm going to fall off there a bit, so that it's a known journey.
Yeah. No, it's really important. Yeah, I really like that. Um, yeah, it's just ways to give yourself confidence, right? And have some control the controllables as well.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, just being a process. Um, seeing it as a process and not focusing just on those wins and those end parts seems to be like the resounding theme of your journey.
Yeah. And also, I think before I felt, and I think I've mentioned this before to you, and I've felt just really apologetic and embarrassed, possibly, about the fact that, I don't know, almost like, alcohol's anonymous. People, this is my problem. I'm sort of sharing you this with everybody. This is my problem, and not seeing it like that, but actually seeing it in a positive way, and really valuing the journey that I have gone on and chosen to go on, because it's been a lot of fun, and it's meant that I've achieved things that I didn't think I'd achieve. So actually just really sort of embracing it all, and really kind of owning it has made a difference as
Mm,
well. I'm going, this is
yeah.
what I do when I go to the crag. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, no, I think you're so uniquely good at that, and I think that is part of it. And it's and this is what I wanted to ask you next was about the sort of, you've got a fairly big role in your community. Your chair, is it, of the Bristol Climbing Club?
Yeah, even mountaineering club.
Avon
I am.
Mountaineering Club. Yeah, you're the chair. And so many people are on a kind of journey with mental training, and they're doing that on their own. And there's not, in our community, like the climbing culture as a whole, there is not a great emphasis on talking about what's going on inside our heads on the way to the crag, at the crag. And it's I take it for granted because I don't do that, because I'm so deep in this stuff. I talk about it a lot, but what I see come up with the people I coach is that they do feel really alone. And one of the motivations for starting Strong Mind was to create a bit of a community where people would feel supported, because not everyone, I don't think, would find it as easy. And I'm not saying your process has been easy, but you have been empowered by this process and you are owning it. And yeah, you've learned how to do that, but it is hard for people to do that, especially when they're in a community that they're not getting that positive response from. They might say, I feel quite scared as a climber, but I'm working on it. I want to change it. I'm going to do this full practice. I'm going to do that. Someone saying that and putting themselves out there is really scary. It could be just as scary as doing the full practice itself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're not we're not at that place yet in our community where we can really talk about it. And I just wondered how you feel about it and whether you've been doing anything to try to change that.
Yeah, so I'm hugely passionate about it. And so I wrote a little article when I came back from Klimnos, and actually several people did get in contact with me about it, in terms of something that they'd struggled with. And I regularly climb with one person now, and she signed up for the Strong Minds course, and I can really see it's so good to see her take control and make a difference to her climbing experience. It's just such a good thing to see. And so there's quite a few of there's 14 of us, and we're all going out to Kalymnos, and the people I have climbed with um have it's definitely, it's sort of rubbed off on them, and they've started to approach things slightly differently, and they've started to climb harder. And so it's I feel as though the position that I have, being chair, is is a kind of an opportunity. It's a privilege, but I could really help, just like you obviously want to help lots of people. It is really great sharing what not from obviously a coaching point of view, but just from in conversation, sort of support, and then seeing other people, seeing it having a direct effect into other people's climbing experiences, and seeing happy people rather than scared people. And that, that's about it, isn't it? And that's good result right there.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
really
it's super
great.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how, one person in your community can make a difference, because the thing is, if you're doing this stuff right, you will get good results. So much of my coaching is about getting people to focus on the process, but if you do well at the process, you will see the results. And it's not necessarily about the results. Like, I know for you, climbing 7A, is a really cool achievement that you should be proud of.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that you're more proud of the process, the year that it took you
Yeah,
to get there,
totally.
right? It's just that
Yeah.
the 7A is like the cherry on top. It's kind of the proof that it's actually working. And when people see that, they can't help but go, oh, maybe I could do that too.
Yeah, I'm not a 7A climber. I have climbed a 7A, and I'm climbing an increasing amount of harder routes. So that's great. But what matters to me more is the fact that every time I go out climbing, I have a good day.
Mm.
I mean, that is actually quite a blanket statement. I did actually not have a good day. We went to with Shannon, and we went to Witches Point, and the tide was in. Have you been to Witches Point?
When I was a kid, we used to go there quite a bit. Yeah, it's nice down there.
Yeah, it's really nice. But the tide was in because we got up far too early. So you have to scramble down the headland, and I'm like going,
Oh, I've scrambled out there, I
I'm
remember.
not going down there. So I arrived at the crag super stressed, and there's not a lot of, there are no quality warm-up routes, and there's the top 56C, and there was some harder stuff that Shannon was trying, and basically I kind of did nothing all day, but it was fine because I learned that all those things that had led to the point of me not having a super productive day, and how I would avoid those next time, and actually what was important to me when I go to a new crag, all those learning points. So even though it wasn't, and I climbed this and I climbed this, it was still a good day because I'd added to my learning experience. So I have 3 buckets. I have a mindset bucket, I have a technique bucket, and I have a strength bucket. And so I think I have to put more in my mindset bucket, but generally you have to put stuff in all your buckets. And so every time you go out, you're going to put something into 1, 2, maybe 3. It doesn't really matter. But so
Nice.
that there means that it's always a good day. And
Yeah.
that is more important than climbing 7A, though it would be really nice to climb another one.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Yeah, I like your metaphor of the buckets. What's interesting about the buckets though is that if you don't put any stones or whatever you're putting in your bucket in the mindset bucket, it's really hard to put any in the strength and the technique bucket. So it's almost like there's a hierarchy of buckets in my mind.
Yeah,
Because if you can't try hard, because you can't fall, you're not going to get stronger, and if you also won't build your technique, because we need challenge to develop our movement skills.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for chatting. Is there anything else you want to add, or do you feel like we covered it?
I think we pretty much covered it, and I am also conscious that because I'm so enthusiastic about this, that I could probably talk just for ages and ages and ages, because I sort of feel so sort of passionate about it, because it has completely changed my climbing experience. Like when I met you earlier in the year, to get from that person to this person feels like, 2 very different people. So yeah, I'm really passionate about it, but I think we've covered most of it.
Yeah, no, and your passion it shows through, and I think it's really inspiring, and um you know I don't want to focus on it, but I think your age as well is inspiring. It's I'm not saying you're old, sorry. But
I am
like
55.
you are 55, and I think a lot of people probably think that if they are 55 in their 50s, that it's too late to change their climbing experience and get more out of climbing. But you are proof that for you it's like all your climbing still ahead of you, because you might not be able to be as physically strong as you were in your 20s, but with this change in mindset, you can do so much stuff now that you weren't able to before. So it's really just like to have all of that those exciting climbing experiences ahead of you is just such a cool place to be.
Yeah, it is really exciting. I feel as though there is an element of time that will come into that. It's just, obviously I've no idea. In a way, it doesn't really matter how long I will be able to keep climbing what I consider, I don't know, maybe it will just move as I get older, that trying harder it'll all be relative, that's the word, will be relative. But yeah, definitely, I think your mind is such a massive factor in what your body can do, and if you could just turn it off sometimes, or redirect it, or your body does something and you're like, I have literally no idea how I did that, or what, or the fact that I could do that. And that's it is a very, you must find the same, it is a very surprising thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think what you're describing there is flow state, what I know that I'm in flow when I'm like, wow, how did I do that?
Yeah,
Like that was like impossible what I just did. Um, that's not what I'm thinking when I'm in flow, but afterwards.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and so yeah, you if when your mind's strong, you can get the most out of your body. So, it doesn't matter what age you are or what physical training you're doing. If you're not, if you don't have a strong mind, all of that training and everything's just gonna go to waste. Um, which, a lot of people I don't think realize how much they're wasting.
I actually think maybe that's the addictive bit, that point where you do get your body into that flow state and you essentially are performing, but you've put so much work into getting to that point, and all the stars align and all your little neurons align, and you get there. And it's not it's not, for me, it's not something I can do, you know all the time, but I love the fact that I know, and I mean, maybe that's another factor, that I know that by working in this way that I will get there again. And that's is I think that's possibly that's the addictive bit, isn't it? Because it's pretty nice when you are there.
Yeah, no, it's such a good state to be in for sure. I think it's what brings a lot of us back to the sport. Um, so yeah, getting there more often is kind of one of the missions of Strong Mind, helping people get there more often, and just having the best days that they can. So yeah, it's been really good chatting to you and hearing your
Yeah,
story.
thank
I
you.
I think people find it really inspiring, and yeah, I know we will be in touch, and I'm excited to see
Yes.
what's next for you.
I'm excited to see that too. It's really nice to talk to you this morning.